you'll be in an interview and basically say, what is it that, makes you qualified for the job? People will list some things and then say, okay, great. So I want to apply. I want to get into the management position as fast as I can. And when do I get my first raise? And you're like, whoa.
Lights, camera, action. We're back for your satisfaction from Action Business Furniture Studios is where it's happening. We have a special guest today, Debie Rameriez with the Champions Empire. And now taking it away for your Friday conversation is your host, Jonathan Byron. Take it away, John.
Thank you, Mike.
Good night, folks.
Dave, it is so good to have you back. You finally came back last week when I was out of town, and I'm watching from 2 hours away like, oh, I miss Dave. So good to have you back.
Good to be
You
here.
look good.
Thank you.
You look good. And everybody that's here, welcome. Thank you for being here. A couple new... Choking on popcorn. If you come and be here live, you get free popcorn. It's part of, and some soda water. So,
It's a perk.
come on down.
That's the only reason I come.
That's it. Yeah.
Bear no expense.
So we are talking about a topic that is super challenging to interact with. And the best way that I think we've articulated it so far is how to be a good employee for yourself. But there's a lot that goes into it, and I'm really excited to jump into it. But before we do that, I kind of want to go around the room. Everybody gets a chance to introduce themselves, what your industry is, what your business name is, and then kind of an ideal referral. Who would be a good referral if we could send somebody to you? And then one thing that we really like to highlight is what are the events that are coming up? Events that you're going to, events that you're hosting, or just something that you heard about that you think would be really good for people at the table or people watching at home to be aware of. So I will mention it's Hoop Fest weekend, and if you've never been to Hoop Fest, you got to go down and just experience it one time. It is otherworldly. It really is. It's exciting. I try to make it down at least once every year, so that's something I'm looking forward to. But we will start. I'm going to skip over you, Debbie.
You're good.
We'll start with Rob, and we will. You know what to do.
I know what to do, yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a Friday conversation. I'm Rob Reuter with IDIC Designs, and I help small businesses master technology for growth and better systems. So if you're looking to improve your day-to-day operations and make sure you're in alignment with your costs, give me a shout. I'd love to talk to you about technology.
Excellent. Welcome.
I am Brooke Masters with formerly Cloudberry Stickers, now Cloudberry Consulting.
Yay!
Thank you. I've moved to being like a full promotional studio, so I do consulting, graphic design, and then I still do everything I did before with the actual, making sure you get all these cool promotional products in hand. So stickers, magnets, I'm working on adding apparel and all sorts of other fun items. And a good referral for me specifically right now as we are in kind of the summer and there's all sorts of events happening. Anybody that's doing like trade shows, vendor events, and they want to be able to hand out some really cool stuff to the people that they're talking with, I would love to connect with them and help them out.
Awesome.
Hello, I'm Zane Schwindeman with Zebra Go. We help small business owners with answering phone calls and getting those customers onto the schedule using our software that we developed. So we like to just make sure business owners can do what they do best. We handle everything else. And as far as a good referral, if you have a business that you're trying to get a hold of and all you get is their voicemail, in that voicemail, tell them to call Zebra Go.
That's clever.
That's awesome.
Hi, I'm Dave Ribble from Standout Mastery. If you have an idea that networking is a little bit more than just collecting names, then you're already on your way to being good at what we teach and what we coach. Standout Mastery. We have some events coming up that I'll be talking about in the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, enjoy the show.
How's it going? I'm Steven. I have the misfortune of sitting next to the communications expert. But what I do when I'm fortunate is I'm a fitness and wellness coach. I help people that feel like they're dragging through the day, have more energy, and experience the full miracle of being alive. I guess my My ideal referral. Oh, you're great, boss. My ideal referral would be, yeah, someone that feels like they're dragon, and not like the cool mythical flying dragons.
My name's excuse me, Gary Canavello, and I'm an opera singer and an actor. And I would like to let you know that if anyone here in this room needs any type of advertising, I have a group called the Three Amoebas, and that's exactly how to spell it, amoeba. Three Amoebas. They're a company, and they do TV commercials. They write the script for you. They will do everything and anything you need, and they will guarantee you can get out there in the business, on YouTube, on anywhere you need to be. They will help you out. So I'm advertising for them. I can advertise for a lot of things and people, but that's my main one today, the Three Amoebas. You can write that down, you can call them, they're on YouTube, wherever. And that's all I have to say.
All right.
And this is Melissa, by the way. She is my good friend, and no, I'm just kidding.
I like it, and I'll let you go in a minute, Melissa, but Dave and Rob and I have been talking, and Zane was part of this, I should probably a few other people as well. But one idea that we've had is that you introduce the person next to you. Mm-hmm. So you have to actually get to know each other beforehand. So not this time, although great job, Gary. I like it. I was leaning in. I was like, tell me more. Who is this amazing woman?
I can't tell you too much, John. I don't.
Maybe snap her number.
Yeah, somebody get her phone number for me.
On it. Actually, I have it.
She does have it. He has it too. My name is Melissa Byron. Yes, Jonathan is my husband. For those of you who don't know that, I am a certified health and wellness coach with Thrive Wellness, and I help people with healthy mind and healthy body. So really my ideal clientele are those who are really seeking help with mindset work and healthy body work as well. And that is in a lot of different facets. And so I actually help people in all ages and all stages of life.
Awesome. Welcome.
Joshua Eisenman. I'm a newly minted Certified Associate Project Management. Currently working for Organic Nearby, kind of a grassroots initiative to connect local producers with local consumers. I'm looking for freelance or permanent project management opportunities. I drive change initiatives and put wheels behind strategic initiatives. And for an event coming up, I haven't heard anyone else weigh in on that, but there is a job fair at the Hilton in Airway Heights on the 7th. So I'm going to go to that.
Okay. Sounds awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
I've got an awesome referral for you for someone to talk to. I can't remember her name right now, but I'll look it up. Shanice Dunnigan. Do you know Shanice Dunnigan?
Sounds familiar.
I mentioned her to you yesterday.
Yeah, okay.
Courage to Grow Farms. We'll come back to that.
Yes.
My name is Val Money, and I'm a realtor now with Deese Realty. And this is going to sound a little corny, but I've got a big background in training in how to be loving with people. And so with that said, a good referral for me is someone who is going through maybe a rough transition as they're trying to buy or sell a home. Like, I'm working with somebody now, death in the family, cancer. I mean, there's all these things going on, and my whole job is just to get where she's at in the moment and be compassionate and be empathetic and keep the situation moving forward so she can get to a place of peace. So that's who I'm loving to work with right now.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Mike?
Hey everybody, I'm Data Mining Mike with the Data Mining Minute, and today I'm going to be covering Spokane Big Data Analysis, the roofing data. Did you know that 28,000 roofs have been re-roofed or filed for a roofing permit within the last 20 years? And I have all that data. It takes 23 roofing squares, that's a big package of roofing composite, in order to roof one whole house. It takes three permits per day are submitted. There's 1,100 permits a year. and the average number of roofing permits is slightly increasing, and it's been increasing over the last 5 years. However, it is flat. So that's all I have to say about that till next week.
If you have any interest whatsoever in Data Mining Mike is your go-to source for that. I'm Jonathan Byron. I am a realtor with Real Broker, and I literally, right before we went live, I got off the phone with escrow. We closed escrow on a house. These buyers, kid you not, 18 and 20 years old, youngest buyers I've ever worked with. We hit so many, Val, talk about like stress and obstacles. They hit so many of them. They made it through every single one. Super excited. I won't name their names because I don't have permission to give their names, but they would probably love it. They're just the coolest young couple. Super excited for them. But here's what I'm looking for this year. People that are into buying a house for the first time. So I do help sellers, I help buyers, but the market that we're in right now, if you're renting and you have a good income, even if you think like, oh, I can't because I don't have this much for a down payment, they paid $0 out of pocket. Like you could get into a house ownership for less than a new rental. Great deal, great time to buy. So if you know somebody has good income, thinking about buying, I'd love to just talk to them about what that could look like. But super important, our guest today, Debbie, can you start by telling us a little bit about Champion Empire, and then we'll jump right into our topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with Champion Empire for about 2.5 years, and so what we do, have you ever met a business owner who was stressed out, overwhelmed, or maybe felt stuck? Ever. So that's what we work with. We basically work with them and provide them with a deep bench of experts who work with them to create a custom plan and then to walk it out and get to a point where they're living the life that they were created for. And that's our passion. And what I love so much about Champion is seeing those stories come to life. So my role within Champion, is that okay to share that?
Yeah, please.
So my role within Champion, I'm an advisor, and I do work with our clients with one of our Ask the Experts calls. So we have weekly calls with different experts who have backgrounds, specific, actual, real life experience in specific areas of business that people need in order to grow a small and thriving business, as well as we do one-to-one coaching with business owners as they get to a point that they need it. And so I do advising in one of the Ask the Experts calls. I also work with some organizations with more of the team development side. But I spend 3/4 of my time doing outreach for Champion and basically going out into the communities, meeting people, making friends, and just getting to know people's stories, getting to know people's needs. And I love it. I absolutely love my work in both aspects. Kind of in a lot of ways, is that one is an extension of the other. The outreach really starts the conversation and the process, and sometimes it where it stops, or at least where it goes, is a referral out to people in this room, for example. Sometimes where it goes is a conversation that gets somebody thinking and gets somebody processing, and that's what they need for now. Sometimes it results in a longer term relationship where we can help them with the aspects of growing their business, which then eventually results in hiring. We help with hiring awesome employees who are a good long-term culture fit. There's actually a range of different services that we offer as businesses grow. But that's what I do in a nutshell.
So before we jump into the topic, I want to brag on Debbie a little bit. And in order to do that, I have to brag on myself a little bit.
Please.
So I'm really good conversationally, like when I sit down with somebody new, I'm really good at pulling their story out of them. I've developed a skill set over the years. And so I sat down with Debbie months ago for the first time we had a conversation. And this is what I'm good at. This is my skill set. And we get like an hour in and I'm like, well, so that's a little bit about me. So Debbie is just fantastic at doing that thing that we all need to get really good at, is like identifying needs, identifying who the person she's sitting across from is. So props to you. You got me talking. Now it's your turn to talk. And and this whole conversation, that's actually one of the reasons I invited you here, is it's not just about you. It's not just about me. It's about the people here in this room. And so for everybody that's here, your input here is valued. Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. I'm super excited to jump into the topic. We've talked about it so much, so I almost don't even know where to start.
Yeah. Well, can I start
Please,
just
of course,
by saying thank you for having me out. I told Jonathan kept meaning to make it out, and I've come out once and watched various of the live broadcasts. Friday afternoons have just been tough for me. For some people, it's the ideal spot, and for me, it's like that golden window in the week. But with that being said, I really, really just love the opportunity to be here, and particularly just, you know, that this is that place where it really, the feel that I got when I first came was just that place where people can just come, and people who have very stressful, you know, high performing, out there doing things and creating businesses in the community can come and just kind of let their hair down and be themselves and just support each other. And I love that. So really appreciate the chance to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you.
Yeah.
All right, so you. Oh, is that what? That was your thing. Okay, all right.
Do you want me to though? Because I do have some thoughts.
Well, I'm gonna start by throwing it out to the room. Some of you have seen the flyer. Some of you kind of know what the topic is. I'm curious if there's any and I actually have Genevieve that a few people know. Genevieve actually already commented, and so I was like, oh man, that is spot on. So we can start there. But does anybody have something that you're just like, I want to jump the topic with this?
Well, I know based on the flyer that came out, I just kept thinking of one of my role models, one of my icons is Yvon Chouinard, the founder of Patagonia, and he shares that he had a psychologist come in to Patagonia in the early days, just kind of make sure everyone was in the right seat, right brain people were doing right brain tasks and stuff, and he said the psychologist said that it was the most independent workforce he ever saw. In fact, all of the employees are unemployable anywhere else. And when I heard that, it was I feel like that's what I've become in my self-employed journey. I'd be a horrible employee anywhere else just because of that. But in that regard, I'm also sometimes a horrible employee to myself. So I'm excited for the topic so I can be maybe better at that, or maybe a better manager of myself. I don't know, the internal struggle, whatever. One of them needs to be better at helping the other one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think that's so well said, Steve. And I think part of why I was excited to come is that this is not an area where I'm like, yeah, this is nailed in the bag, you know,
Right.
and it feels like this is that spot where it's the vulnerable conversation, you know, that's just us going, when you manage yourself. And even though, you know, I work within Champion Empire, I'm very self-directed in terms of my role. Jesse, who's our CEO and my boss, Jesse Johnson's awesome. He's a lot of why I work at Champion, is just to be around him and learn from him. And he's basically like, if I have to micromanage you, there's a big problem. So he basically sets us up in roles where it's very similar to that. You know, we're for the most part, we're part of a team, and we have goals and priorities that we align around. In fact, we have strategic planning, full day of strategic planning for the quarter on Tuesday. But, you know, within that, it's very self-directed, and that I think is one of the biggest challenges, you know, is exactly what you said, managing time, managing priorities, all those kind of things. So I'm excited for the discussion.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What's the topic?
Great question. So the heading that we've put on it is how to be a good employee for yourself.
Oh.
And or flip the script, how to make yourself a good employee, how to be a good boss of yourself.
Right on.
So,
all right,
great
I'm in.
clarifying question. Yeah.
I love Jesse Johnson. He's amazing.
Yeah, he's pretty cool,
Yeah.
and that's awesome. I've been excited to get to know you too. I've heard lots of amazing things.
Oh,
Yay!
Yeah. I keep hearing people triangulating into you, so
Oh, right on.
we're gonna throw some coffee.
Yes, coffee.
I feel like today is a really good, there's a lot of connections being made that have been years in the works, that it's oh good, you're in the same room together.
Yeah.
I can't believe Gary and Val, as many times as Val has come and Gary has come, that they didn't overlap with each other. So
Well, I'd like to I'm ruining the topic, but I can see why you read the script the best now.
Right.
You win the award. You win the Oscar.
okay, so for those of you at home that weren't here for the script reading, we're gonna get back on topic.
Yes.
Here. Yes. So I have two thoughts. So one, Genevieve that I mentioned, she shared, I had asked the question to anybody that saw the event, what's your go-to excuse when you don't do the thing you said you were gonna do? And she said, oh, I'll just do it next time.
That's a really good one.
And I'm like, man, that is so, whether it's for my personal health, eating better, drinking less, whatever it is, it's oh, tomorrow I'll get started. And in fact, I think Stephen, we talked about the tyranny of tomorrow. There is this oh yeah, I'll get started on this. And I sit down to do it and it's yeah, but tomorrow, and reach for whatever that vice is that distracts you. And then the other thing that I wanted to share that is completely different than that, but maybe a different thread for us to pull on. I was at the gym yesterday, and I've never seen this happen, and my gym is the worst example of this, but they came out and cleaned the water fountain in the pool area where I was. And I was like, systems. Melissa and I went on a cruise 2 years ago, and I was blown away by the systems that they had on the, I won't get into all of the details, but it really comes down to the systems that you have in place. And to say that I need to have systems is disingenuous. We all have systems. If my system is, I'm going to play on my phone for a little while, that's my system. And I'm going to default to that. So watching them clean the fountain, I was like, man, if they have a system where it's like, okay, every 2 days we go and we clean all the fountain, whatever, our gym would be incredibly clean. It is not. This is not a endorsement for my gym. I won't even name the name. It's not a great gym.
Fair.
But they have a nice sauna that I like. So anyway, so those are the two thoughts that are on my mind currently. So
Yeah.
kick it back out to the room. What are we, Dave?
How do people find you, or why would they call and say, I really need to talk to you guys?
That's a great question. Well, I'll give you an example, and this maybe is a little bit larger size than maybe the people in this room or maybe who are watching online, but we got a call a couple of weeks ago from someone who is in a general contracting company and local here in Spokane, but probably around 50 employee size. And they called us and said, we heard that you did this communication workshop over at this other, local trades-based company. Heard it was amazing, and I want to find out about it. And basically just said, I want to learn how our team can communicate better. I want to learn how our team can work better together. And so that just started a conversation around, some discovery into some of what the needs are, what they're looking for. And then we ended up coming in and doing that workshop as a chance for their leadership team to unite. Oftentimes we'll do that for, a larger team. That's kind of on more of the team side, but I think kind of a unifying factor with that is, using assessments of different kinds to get people centered into their strengths, whether that's the business owner, whether that's, a couple of key employees, getting people centered into their strengths and going, how very much similar, I can't remember where the conversation was, but similar to what I think you were sharing of that part of making sure that you've got people in their seats who are really bringing huge value to their organization, to their role, and not necessarily just kind of slogging through the stuff that maybe they're not good at.
Are you finding that there's the base or the pool of qualified people to come on board is shrinking?
I don't think so. I wouldn't say that the pool of qualified people is shrinking. I would say that the social skills has changed. And especially, younger generation having gone through COVID, there's a lot of reasons for that, that were a major setback that they're trying to deal with. I think the challenge that has been more of an issue has been for companies as they're hiring. How do you find the qualified people? How do you find them through all of the communication challenges and the social skills that are lacking and all of that? And then once you have them onboarded, we'll end up with situations where you'll be in an interview and basically say, what is it that, makes you qualified for the job? People will list some things and then say, okay, great. So I want to apply. I want to get into the management position as fast as I can. And when do I get my first raise? And you're like, whoa, we are not there yet. And just basically there's kind of actually that indicates some really cool things about the generation. But that being said, it has to be coached in terms of how do you appropriately be an employee in a company? And that part, I think, is
Patience.
something. Yeah, right? A lot of it. I think that's something that we'll work with.
Some of the research that I've done indicate that in colleges and universities these days there are counselors who are telling these young kids, don't stay in one particular position in one job for more than 2-3 years tops if you want to get to the money.
Yeah, definitely see the results of that.
And at the same time, something I read the other day was we're still educating people based on the Industrial Revolution. Instead of the data and everything that we're in now, we're still teaching and training on this.
Dave, that is a fascinating conversation that you and I'll have to have at some point.
Yeah.
I will
Yeah.
like dive hardcore into that pool and we'll splash around for a long time.
I want to
That's a
invest
really fun one.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think that does actually bring up a great point is, you know, when you think of the Industrial Revolution and this whole idea of basically somebody being a cog in a machine, there's a reason why the people who are in this room have chosen not to be, right?
Right.
Even if you're within a bigger organization, and I am, I'm part of a small organization, but you know, even if you're part of a large organization, such as a lot of real estate firms or, you know, finance firms, but you're basically operating as an independent contractor, even if technically you have employee status. So, you know, that part, I think, in my understanding, is this community is a lot of people who either are business owners of small businesses or are part of a larger organization but having to operate as if they are their own business owner. And I think that's that huge challenge. Is it's a great thing. That's why we step outside of being a cog in a machine. But then the challenge is all of a sudden you go, oh God, I'm responsible for everything.
Right.
You know, and I think that part, when it kind of strikes you, is a little bit terrifying. And, you know, kind of back to the point of talking about like, how do you actually really, how do you make yourself go do the work when really you could not? Now, would there be consequences? Yeah. Would there be consequences even from your boss if you have a boss? Yes. But those consequences are far enough down the road. Oftentimes it's next week, it might be at the end of the quarter, it might be, you know, pretty far down the road. How do you actually make yourself do the work when it's like you don't have any kind of immediate consequences? And I think that's something that I will find for myself at times is, especially when I'm managing different priorities, and I'm one of those people who needs to have multiple plates spinning or I get bored, you know?
Right.
So I will take on the multiple different plates, but then at some point I'll get overwhelmed. And I literally have found myself, I don't know if anyone can relate, but I literally have found myself several times over the last couple of weeks fantasizing about crawling into my bed and pulling the covers over my head. And just going, how nice would that be, right? And the interesting thing is, this is kind of a side note that we can get into or not, but the interesting thing is the psychosomatic part of that, where your body starts to respond. And I actually had a colleague, Kyle, who's one of our advisors, who does some really powerful mindset coaching. He offered to do some coaching with me using NLP techniques to identify the source of migraines. And partway through my sessions with him, I'm so excited, but already had some major things unlocked. And we found that one of those things was performance anxiety. And so my body just causes myself a little migraine to take me out of the stressful situation.
And
that resonate
I've been wanting to, well, I was thinking the answer to the question earlier came to mind is about your motivations. What is that motivates you? Because you know, the answer to the question of, you know, how do I respond when it's crunch time and I got to do this thing, what do I do? It really comes down to what is top of mind motivation at that moment. So for instance, I have a daily goal, health goal, physical goal, and when I'm on my A game, I've literally gotten out of bed at 11 o'clock at night and gotten dressed and headed outside because I hadn't hit my goal.
Yeah.
And I was not going to go to bed without hitting that goal. And then there's other times I look at that and I start negotiating.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I got half the distance I needed to do today.
Yeah.
You know, but again, it comes down to, as you talk about it, it's about what goes on in your head. You know, so it was just yesterday I was going, yeah, I'm not going to get 10,000 steps in, but I got 5,000.
Yep.
So I start rationalizing that it's better than nothing, but at the same time I have to remember, okay, at some point I have to make a decision as to which is the achievement, or what, you know, is it achievement Is it a number on a piece of paper that's important to me? What is it? Because I also work with college students, and I can give them deadlines. I can tell them, this is due at this point, and I can remind them every class period, it's coming, and they will still wait until literally 12 hours before it's due, and then start emailing me the problems they're running into and their rationalization why they need more time. And that's the challenge we have to address, is what's your motivation, and is it big enough that you'll overcome your inertia?
Do you mind if I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
When you got out of bed, and there's a kind of a holistic perspective where it's like, well, maybe that was maybe great that you let yourself sleep, right? But when those times when you got out of bed, got dressed, went outside to finish up your 10,000 steps, what was your why that made you do that?
Mm-hmm. Well, at the time, and that's the thing why I talked about motivation. So I follow Yukai Chu with the octalysis, human motivations, and I have identified over the last 6 months that achievement is one of my big motivations. More than being recognized by others for achievement, it's my, if I say I'm going to do this, and it's a knowable quantity, then I'm big into it. Now, if it's I need to finish my platform and get it out there so I can start marketing it it's like, yeah, I will sit here with my tablet and watch hours of video. But you put a number in front of me and say you only need 2,000 more steps. I'm out the door, and I'm going to do it.
That is so interesting. Well, that's a really interesting, I think, question around this is, let's say you've done your work, you've set your priorities, you've got your goals, right? You know kind of what your purpose is and your mission and all those things, and you've got your goals set out for the quarter. And within those goals, you kind of, let's say you've actually done the work that you know what you're supposed to be working on this week, right? To get to that goal. And that includes doing some hard stuff, such as whatever that looks like. And I think, everyone here, I think, is either a business owner or has sales as some component of what you do, right? You have to sell your own product, service, etc., or you are, that is your role, right? So when it comes to the hard stuff, making the phone calls, doing the cold calling or the drop-ins, going maybe for some, to me, going to a networking group is like, I might have like this little moment right before I walk in if I don't know people where I'm like, oh, and then I'm fine. That's not a deal for me at all. In fact, I actually use it as a motivator for myself. But for some people, that would be a big deal, right? To go in there, especially if you have a goal, you need to get a certain number of, contacts or something like that. When it comes to that hard thing, how do you motivate yourself to do it? Mm-hmm. And particularly, how do you get yourself into the mind space to do it? I'm curious what works for people.
I'm full on in avoidance of doing hard things. I just
Such an honest answer.
I just ran a business for 10 years, and everyone's heard me complain about it. That was very, very, very hard and complicated and taxing and everything. So now that I'm doing, well, I have a caveat. Early on, like in the 70s, there was a book called Do What You Love and the Money Will Follow. And I never read the book, but I spent a whole life being passionate. And I think that's terrible advice. I don't know that I would necessarily make those same passionate decisions again, right? So that said, I also have a high anxiety problem. Every moment of every day, I am dealing with anxiety. And the only time I'm not anxious is when I'm having a conversation with somebody or speaking to a room full of people, but in particular having a conversation with somebody that's designed to make a difference for them. And I walk away from those conversations energized, turned on, fulfilled, excited, and that's my whole mission right now, is just to have those kinds of conversations. And you know, I'm not killing it like Jonathan Byron, but every deal I've had, I haven't sold anybody. They just come my way because they know me or whatever. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, to put it in a slightly different context, I'm not going to cold call leads. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to go door knocking. I don't want to do that. I don't want to talk to my friends about if they're ready to buy or sell a house. I'm just going to go around and be visible. One, and work on visibility, and two, make a difference wherever I possibly can. So that's my whole plan.
So it sounds like you found something that works for you. It's not, you know, for you, it's not getting up the courage or the motivation or making yourself do the things. It's finding which out of all the different outreach strategies you could use actually works for you. And that's just going out, being in context and loving on people, having conversations, listening to them, asking them questions.
I don't know if I told Jonathan this the other day, but I recently realized that the Good Samaritan story from the Bible that I got delivered when I was 6 or 7 years old or whatever had a huge impact I did not realize until very recently. So I can't stand to see people suffer. I can't stand to see people shrink back from who they could be if they were fulfilled. And I want to help. It's like, I'm not trying, I hope this doesn't come across like I'm bragging. It's just like, I want to make the difference. If I see somebody in the ditch, what I do or what you should do, I think is help. So it stems all the way back from church, Sunday school till now. Yeah.
I love that. That's so cool.
And it's an interesting pivot that I've been wrestling with for at least 2-3 years now. And that is that there are these activities that we are told we have to do.
Yeah.
Cold calls, showing up at network, whatever the thing is that we find unpleasant. And an aspect what Stephen was talking about of like, do the thing that you're good at, that lights you up, and let the rest of the team handle the rest of it. So in this idealized world, what Val just said, I think is what we all long for, right? Like, I want to wake up in the morning, I want to do the stuff I love, the stuff that I'm good at, the stuff I was designed to do, and let other people do the stuff I don't enjoy doing, that they enjoy doing and do really well.
Yeah.
So like, if that's the ideal, which, you know, we're not in that utopia yet from what I can tell, and the other extreme is like, I just do all the miserable stuff all the time, because we were talking about retirement and like how it used, you know, just how things are changing and all of that stuff is like, so where do we find ourselves now in the here and now? Like, does Val just give up? Like, Chase, what was the book that you didn't read?
Do what you love and the money will follow.
Yeah. And
I'm not kidding. I did a whole 45 years of that.
And I think I did the same thing with the 4-hour work week or whatever it was. I heard about it. I heard about this book called the 4-hour work week, and I was like, that's it. I'm only working 4 hours a week from now on. I'm still trying to make that work. 80 hours a week later. But I only count those as 4 hours a week. Yeah. So,
perfect.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like, obviously this resonates with everybody because we all just want to wake up and do the stuff we love. But what have you experienced in real life?
I don't know if that does super resonate. So one of the things, I just read a book called The Motive. And it's more about, it's an allegory of like CEO and leadership. And one of the big things in there is like trying to convince the underperforming CEO that your job really is supposed to be the most uncomfortable in the organization. And that's just part of the job. If you signed up for it, it's part of the deal. And if it's not the deal that you want, that's fine. You just have to renegotiate down. So I think sometimes with entrepreneurship, we run into that trap of only doing the things we want to do and not accepting the things that are our responsibilities. Whether it's, in leadership, you have to babysit adults sometimes. You have to give direction. You have to give support. You have to give that vision and that focus and remind of the values. Whatever it is, like in your role, you're going to have those uncomfortable things you don't like. But that's part of the job. If you signed up for the job, you signed up for the good and the bad.
That's why they pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, well, in theory, hopefully. So selfishly want to push back on the topic. It's easy to do the stuff that we love. We love it. There's no resistance. There's parts of the job that we, even as an entrepreneur, we're still responsible for, that we do have resistance for, that when we don't, makes us a bad employee to ourselves, which brings back to the original topic. So I'm curious, Debbie, like how do you help people get past that resistance of the yucky tasks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is such a good question. That was one thing that was popping into my mind as you were talking, Jonathan, was that like, and we'd love to just kind of get to where we're just doing what we love, and that's all we do, and everybody else does everything else. And I'm thinking for the solopreneur, where like you are the business, that's like $1 million question, like call Zane, right? You know?
Everybody call me.
Right? Exactly. You know, like, yes, there's that principle, right? Which is, that's a very valuable principle, is who do you contract things out to, right? Because absolutely, you know, could we be setting ourselves free to do things that are, you know, the $100 tasks, or, you know, Jesse was doing a webinar recently that's that kind of like get yourself into the higher level tasks and, you know, basically like outsource some of the things that are not, right? But I think the question that's really interesting to me, that I really kind of love this little discussion, is it just doing what we're good at or what we love, or is it sometimes doing the things that we don't, you know, naturally love, but getting ourselves in a mindset where our why is big enough and we're actually still able to get into a state of flow. And that, I'll give an example. I think I shared this with you, but had somebody who came, I live in a neighborhood where we get a lot of door knockers. So I had somebody who came to the door and knocked on the door and asked, you know, hey, I'd love to wash your car. And I was kind of like, okay, why do you want to wash my car? Right? And he did explain it better than that. But it was basically, you know, he had a new detailing business and he was trying to get his Instagram page to get a lot of likes, and so for that reason he was offering some free car washes, potentially result in some new customers, but also be able to photograph and video their car and all of that. So great thing. Once I understood what he was doing, I did do a little bit of research kind of like make sure he was legit, and then he came and washed my car, you know, wanted to kind of help him out, plus I'll take a free car wash. So what I found really interesting, and I did end up talking further with him, his name's Mario Ortega with Driveway Detailers 509, just giving him a little shout out because he's brand new in business and did a great job on my car. But what was really interesting to me was that I visited with him a little bit and asked him, you know, you're out here door knocking, that's not easy. You know, he looks really young. He's like, you know, right around that 20 mark, you know. And I said, how much of the day do you do that? He says, well, I jumped right into it. I actually, you know, had a bit of runway, quit my day job, and I actually jumped straight into this. So he's like, I go out door knocking 8 hours a day. And I was floored. Like, no, I cannot think of a single person who enjoys door knocking. I know there's people who do it, but I can't think of a single person who loves it. And I said, well, how do you do it? You know, how do you make yourself get out of bed? And he's super impressive. He gets up like 4:35, goes and works out, then, you know, hits his day. And he said, I actually just really like people. And so I always think to myself, who am I going to meet? Who are behind those doors? So I'm going to go meet. And then he just engages people in conversation. And sometimes it results in, you know, car washes, and sometimes it results in detailing, and sometimes it just results in some warm contacts, and sometimes it's just a conversation, you know. And I just thought that was so interesting because he found a way to tell himself, what I'm going out to do is to meet people and make friends. Not what I'm going out to do is to go try to develop business through knocking on people's doors and, you know, having people slam in my face. How has that, you know, worked for you in your roles, or how could that work for you in your role?
I feel like kind of building off that a little bit, and also what Val mentioned about like this drive to help people. I'm kind of in real time like self-analyzing what I was as an employee, because I was a very good employee when I was an employee. But the two things that motivated me was one, which was unfortunately rare, was just being super into what I was doing and getting into that flow state, and then like, forget about it, you don't have to worry about me, I'm going to get more work done in a day than everyone else does in like weeks, which is great. But then the other thing that motivated me was just, I'm a people pleaser. I liked my supervisor. When they asked me to do overtime, I said yes every time. And you know, when somebody needed help with a project, I would step in and help them. And then now with my business, it's really good when I have clients, because if a client comes to me and they say, hey, big ask, but can you do this for us? I'm trying to find every way to say yes. And that's great until there are the tasks where there is not somebody else to please. Like, I have to manage my social media. Nobody else really cares if I post or not. Like, that's something that I have to do for my business, for myself. I have to work on my website. There's not going to be anybody else in my life asking about that. Like, you know, these are just certain things that I just have to do to keep the business going. And so I'm trying to find a way to kind of reframe it as like, this is something, like, I have to be willing to work as hard for myself as I am willing to, like, make other people happy and do things for other people. I need to do that for myself and my business as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. And that's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
I was actually going to highlight, Brooke, you shared something on social media probably like a couple months ago now that I was like, yes. You said something like, I got out of working 9 to 5 so because I was tired of people telling me what to do, and now that I'm a business owner, I just want someone to tell me what to do.
Yeah. 100%. I remember that post.
And although I haven't mastered it, I haven't even necessarily figured out how to articulate how to do that, I do think that there is an answer to that, to this question in that idea. And Brooke, you said it really well just now, or at least danced around the edge of it, is if I can recognize the two hats and put on like CEO Jonathan hat and create, this is what employee Jonathan's going to do. And, you know, with AI and all the different things, like, I can create a pretty good like flow sheet of like, okay, here's what you do. And even tailor it to myself. I don't like to wake up early. Melissa knows this. Ongoing conversation in our house. I don't love waking up. She doesn't like staying up late. And so we each have our own individual quiet time at different times of the day. The point being, I can create my schedule the way that works for me, and then basically like email it to myself and be like, here's your schedule for the week. And I, like I said, I haven't done that, and I haven't worked out like exactly how. And this gets back to the big question of like, what does it take to get me to do that work? We talked a few weeks ago about writing out a will. And Melissa, now that you're in the room, we've had this conversation. We need to write a will.
Yeah.
And our guest that I had that conversation with has come and gone, and we still have that as a pending, you know, the urgent takes the place of the important so often. So how do we do that? How do we put something, and I don't know that we give ourselves enough credit for all of the times that we do put things into motion, but for those things that are frustrating us, how do we elevate that to the state that it makes us do that, the hard thing that it's like, I know I need to sit down and just do this.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a really good question, and kind of makes me think it's kind of coming down to, go ahead, Stephen.
I just, when you were talking about Brooke's post about wishing someone would tell me what to do, as a selfish plug, well, I guess it's not selfish because I'm not involved. That can be what a coach is good at.
Sure.
And I think you know a couple.
I've met a few, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you realize that you need someone to tell you what to do, that is an option. I don't know about the AI flow, because there's a little bit of you that's still gonna know, like, I'm saying this.
I'm the one that's
So you're still negotiating with yourself, but I think a coach could be really helpful in that situation too.
I would just throw in there though, that, you know, I still give coaches a hard time too. Going, I know you keep assigning that workout to me, but it just doesn't go with the flow. And the right coach will figure out, then let's fit it to the flow so that it works for you. And that's the challenge sometimes, is you do have to, again, go back and look at yourself and say, okay, this needs to get done, and I'm gonna have to let go of the thing I want to do. It's like, you know, today was one of those classics where I was really trying to wrap everything up by 12:30, which is my normal Friday routine, because I'm here at 1 and we do our thing. And about 12:15, the calls started coming in and I started dealing with multiple inbounds. And some point about 1:15, I just said, okay, it's not gonna happen. Change of plan. I need to get this done, I need to get this done, I need to get this done, and I have to be here by, at least 2:30. I was here at 2. So, it was playing a quick offense. I'm a Seahawks fan, and I remember watching hate when names just vanish. But anyway, quarterback
Russell Wilson.
when he would just impromptu, you could watch the play. The play was going this direction, it wasn't going to work, and Russell would just start moving until the opportunity showed up, and then boom, he hit. So it's that quick on your feet, decide what needs to get done, and then get it done, and then go back and say, what's the plan?
Well, I think what you're really talking about is priorities. Because, and you mentioned before the why, like that is key, right? Having your why be big enough to go do the hard stuff, right? And then having the priorities be worked out. And I think you were talking about, to me, that's time blocking and prioritization, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of part of like, and this is something that I totally know, we teach, but carving out that hour and keeping it sacred to do my weekly planning. Ooh. Because when I have, and this is something that's actually really helped us, which, again, you can figure out what works for you if you're in kind of a solopreneur role. But something that we've found works for us is we'll have members of so anyone who is, leading in an area, we'll get together Monday morning and do a priority pop-up. So it's basically just half an hour. We'll get together, we'll share our priorities for the week. It keeps us in the know for what everybody's working on that are kind of those key big things that are driving it forward. And then also helps us have to, you have the accountability. You're going to show up, you have to share it, right? Yeah. And that part, for me, more important than any of the other weekly planning is those, getting my 3 priorities figured out and written down. And especially if I share it with somebody, say it out loud, write it down. Now you're starting to engage different senses and you're starting to multiply the likelihood that you'll actually follow through and do it, right? Yeah. But I think that part is, when you talk about being able to make decisions on your feet, you cannot do that if you don't have your priorities worked out. Right? Then you're just being reactive. It's like the inbound calls are coming in. For me, that was perfect because I was working on, I decided that this week, kind of in a quarter, I'm not worrying too much about as much outbound outreach, even though I know I should. But I'm kind of like, okay, I got to make some decisions here. So I'm going to go ahead and touch base with the people who I already know I have in the pipeline. I know that they have already expressed they want to meet our services and where are they at and how can we help and all those kind of things. So when people started calling me back, I was like, oh, perfect, this is great. And I was able to kind of put aside the project I was working on, whereas for you that was a distraction and you had to kind of pivot because you already worked out your priorities. And I think that's a really key point, that way more important than having a to-do list is having the priorities for the week, right? So I think that's awesome. I think the other part that Stephen, you hit on is the accountability. What's the accountability? And that when it comes to sitting down with somebody, a good coach, a Stephen, a Melissa, when it comes to health, you mentioned that. It's not going to be necessarily what size fits all, right? And it's not going to be some people want hey, tell me what to do. Give me the to-do list. I'm going to push back and go, I'm still not sure. That should come from a me. Do you know what I mean? But that being said, a good coach will pull it out of you. They'll also provide you with tools when something's not working. And I know for me, we coach internally, right? So for me, when I have my weekly check-in with Jesse, it's not like, okay, let's see where you failed. You know what I mean? That's what we're all afraid of when it comes to accountability. That's why we hate that word fundamentally, is because to us accountability means let's see where I failed and where I'm not measuring up. And that's what we're desperately terrified of, which is probably why we avoid the work, to be super honest, right? I know I do. But, when it comes down, Dave, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, when we go out and we meet people and we talk about this great conversation that you've provided today, what do you want us to say and how do you want us to find business for you?
That's a really good question. Yeah. Could I come back to that in just a second?
And the second part of it is, do you work more with HR?
We do HR for larger organizations. We do work with HR for sure.
So that's where accountability is going to be right behind you,
Right.
because they're going to want to know whether or not what you gave them is being lived up to.
Yeah. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit? Like, what are you thinking in terms of that?
Well, just if HR bought into what you're going to tell the employees so that you can get a lot of good things going, who's going to account for that?
Yeah.
HR wants to know.
Yeah.
Right? They want to know whether or not things got better.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think a lot of that has to do with the ongoing relationship. You know, I think there are service providers who come in and provide a training, and it's kind of a one-off. And we will, you know, maybe if it's the right thing for the organization. But for the most part, we want to have an ongoing relationship that's, you know, continuing to touch base, help you set strategic priorities, and then set up the data points to say, are you measuring up to that? And that's a really good point, Dave, because that point, just, you know, that's exactly what we're talking about, is how do you hold yourself accountable when it comes to set the priorities, are we hitting them? And how do you adjust when you need to without also making it so painful that we're just sitting there going, oh my God, I'm failing at all times, right? So I think that, to me, finding the person or the people who can sit down with you, who know your plan, not just, you know, it's great to have friends, it's great to have community, but people who know your plan, who are helping you walk it out, who are in the know, and also can sit with you. And, you know, when I meet with Jesse on a weekly basis, he's not like, okay, you know, where did you not live up? He actually will literally just say, how can I help you today? How can I help you to be successful? And he's basically there making himself available to help. And I'll pull out the agenda and say, okay, well, let's review my scorecard and see, you know, where I'm on track and off track and how maybe we can think through. And let's take a look through my pipeline and let's, you know, get some ideas. And he's great because he does have the real world lived experience with the fruit on the tree in that area, which is another area. I mean, don't go to a health coach who's not actually living out the health journey. Don't expect perfection, right? We're all on the health journey, but there's vulnerability, but you have to, like, you know that people are practicing what they preach, right?
Yeah.
But that part of somebody who has the deep experience with success, a lot of fruit on the tree, who can sit with you and go, hey, how are you doing? How can I help? How can I help you unlock things? That's critical.
For sure. For sure. I want you to think about the question, because I do want people to be able to connect
Yeah,
with
it's a
Champion
great
Empire.
question.
We are going to start wrapping this up. I know Mike probably has something super exciting for a wind down. I do want to just take, Zane?
Next week? No.
Oh, yes, thank you. There's definitely a few wrap-up things. So, as Rob is always so good at reminding me, I actually remembered it myself.
Okay.
We are at Action Business Furniture, and we like to give them a shout-out. If you need furniture, business furniture, desks, chairs, we are in a room with a ton of chairs. You can't necessarily see them. I mean, maybe behind Zane there you can see them. But yeah, there's chairs, there's desks, there's sit-stand desks. They've got some great opportunities. Park and Sprague is there. Also, Zane, thank you so much for saying that. Next week, we will not be here. It is July 4th. Go have a barbecue, go out on the lake, watch the fireworks, enjoy celebrating our country, whatever that looks like for you. I'm not going to tell you how to celebrate. I'm not even going to say anything more about that, but it is 4th of July. Yay, us. We will be back, though, the following week. Melissa Byron will be our guest presenter. And we are very excited about that. If you want to connect further with Debbie and Champion Empire, did you figure out what they
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that was a great question, Dave. So thanks so much for that. Yeah, so I think, you know, I think the question is who to refer. Is that
Sure,
right? How
yeah.
to connect. Yeah. So that question, I think there's kind of two different demographics, right? So the one is the, you know, kind of HR person, or, you know, people who are in an organization, larger, locally based. We do work, you know, nationwide. But we love to pour into Spokane and to help the Spokane economy get better, help all of us to thrive through local small business. You know, when they are in that larger size and they have, you know, the 50 plus employees, that person who's often great and is struggling and trying to figure out how to put things together is oftentimes the HR person. The person who is running finance, front desk, can be a great resource because they oftentimes are the eyes and ears. And you know, are looking for ways to help their culture get better, or to help their team to thrive. Other demographic is small business owner, small and growing, oftentimes a couple of years in, oftentimes very active in the community, believe it or not. You'd expect somebody to be behind the desk, just kind of like handling the work all the time, oftentimes out networking, trying to develop business, oftentimes in educational setting, trying to learn, trying to grow, trying to be better, right? But oftentimes, kind of expressing things like, I'm just trying to figure out how to. And when they say that, that's where I'd love a connection to go, yeah, I've got a friend who might be great to talk with, and just pick their brains, ask them some questions, get some ideas flowing, and hopefully provide them with some next steps.
Awesome. Mike, hold on. Whoa, not yet. So I do want to just put this bow on, and I want to highlight, Val, you shared something with me this week that I have been using since you shared it, and it's been great. And basically what Val was telling me, he learned this Melaleuca days, right?
2002.
2002, basically never leave a conversation without setting up the next steps.
The next specific step.
Next specific steps. And the main thing that you said there is not what I'm going to highlight here, but the main thing is that it gets rid of so much of that awkwardness of following up and like, oh, hey, I talked to you a week ago, but like you've set up, and so now you have all these excuses for reaching out, which is super helpful for somebody like me. But the reason I want to highlight it is in this moment, whether you're here in the room or whether you're watching this live, you're watching it on YouTube, something in this conversation hopefully sparked something for you along the lines of what we're talking about here, where it's like, I've been meaning to, or I know I need to hire a coach. I need to get in touch with a health coach. I need to, there's just so many different things that could have triggered for you. Pick one thing, and before you close this video, before you leave this room, write it down in your phone, text yourself, set that next step. This is the next specific step. This is what I'm going to do. And even as I'm saying it, I'm like, shoot, I'm going to hold myself accountable. I am going to write down my next step before I leave this room, whatever that might happen to be. There's a lot for me a lot of threads to pull on that. But pick one, because that's the other thing. Indecision will kill you. Don't try to fix everything that we talked about for you and your business. Pick one thing, do it today. Or set up the steps that it's going to take. Do that today before you move on to your next thing. We will see you not next week, not July 4th, the following week. Melissa, we're excited to have you as our guest next week. And thank you so much for coming. And Mike, go ahead and take us away.
Your next steps are sharing, because that is caring, and subscribing because our channel needs it. You need to go and check it out. It's phenomenal video editing, and it's the most viewed talk show in Spokane 2025. Be sure to share, like, subscribe. See you next week. Bye.
Not next week. Not next week.
Not next week. Yeah, next time.
See you next. Bye, everybody. Thank you.